Chapter 11. Following their few hours of sleep, both squirrels woke refreshed, with all aches and pains banished. Tam tickled his friend's ear, and Doogy leapt up. "Top of the morning to you, Tam. I'm feeling sproncy the new. Young cordial de mia. Purry good." Just as Tam was about to reply, a fat, smiling hare entered the grotto, bearing a tray of breakfast which he placed between them. Unshouldering two filled haversacks, he saluted comically. "Morning, chaps. What? Name's Wopscott, Corporal Butty Wopscott, in charge of the jolly old supplies and provisions. Tuck, don't you know? Victuals for the use of." Doogy returned his friendly smile. "My thanks to ye. Victuals for the use of what?" But he did a scut twirl and waggled both ears. "For the use of eating, of course. That's the way we talk here, what? I'd shave my tail if I were you. Old Crumshaw's taking the parade. Wouldn't keep him waiting if I was you, chaps. No, sir, not hips, nibs. You'll have your tails for tea and your guts for garters. So quick's the word and sharp's the jolly old action. What? The tubby corporal marched off without further ado. After belting his blades on, Tam hefted his shields and fixed the skeen-doo on his cap. "Up ye come, Doogy Plumm. This is a life for us, marching with real fighters who know what they're doing and do it right." Brigadier Buckworthy Crumshaw was a fine figure of a hare, from his eye monocle to his bristling moustache, to the highly polished buttons on his freshly brushed pink tunic, down to the short swagger cane he carried. The brigadier was smart as paint, and old school to the rigid backbone. He squinted ferociously through his monocle, taking in the 50 ranks of long patrol hares, all standing stiffly to attention. That was when he caught Tam and Doogy creeping up, trying to slip into line unnoticed. Crumshaw pointed his stick at the latecomers. "Parade at first light of dawn means just that, and not two flipping blinks when I later, laddie bucks. Sergeant, these two laggards supposed to be with us. Get them fell in line immediately." One Will saluted and bounced forward a pace. "Sir, they is with us, sir. Mr. Rakkety Tam MacBurl and Mr. Wild Doogy Plumm. You'll have to excuse them lollygagging and loitering, sir. We had to boff 'em over the brains and knock 'em cold to capture 'em last night, sir." Tam and Doogy fell in on the left flank of the first rank. The brigadier circled both squirrels, his sharp monocled eye inspecting them. "Humph! Well, at least you chaps have the look of seasoned warriors. Very good, very good. Nice front. Seen any action, have you? What?" Both squirrels knew a good officer when they saw one. Doogy kept his face straight as he barked out, "Aye, we fought to get porridge in the breakfast line and wounded several bad cooks, sir." Tam added another old campaigner's jest. "And both our blades can peel onions, though we never shed a tear about it, sir." A faint smile hovered around the brigadier's moustache. "Well said. You two rogues will fit in bloody bill fine. So remember, your mothers might have loved you, but I don't. We march till your paws drop off, sleep where you're dropping blood and vinegar for supper. Don't make yourself clear, you horrible squirrels." Doogy replied, "Clear, sir. 'Twill be a wee like a luxury." Morning sunlight sparkled off the sea. As a warm breeze ruffled the dry sand above the tide line, the ranks stood fast until Lady Malisme appeared at the main cave entrance. The long patrol waved blades, bows, slings, axes and javelins, hailing her with their wild war cry. "Yo-la-la!" She held up a paw, then addressed her warriors. "Find the vermin who murdered our young hares. Take no prisoners." Sergeant Onewell bellowed out the marching orders. "Attention! Patrol will form off in columns of 5. Look to your dressing, eyes right, by left, quick marcher." Away they went, with paws pounding up sandy dust as the sergeant shouted, "Present colours, sir!" A pennant-shaped green banner, centred with a white representation of the mountain fortress, was raised as they paraded past Lady Malisme. Two hares set up a march beat on a small snare drums, and 100 lusty voices began singing a regimental marching song. "Farewell, dear mother, I've been sent to march away from here, along with my regiment and a bullion brigadier. What a sight to see, don't cry for me. I'm a hare that's fair, I do declare. I'll follow the drums most anywhere. The dear old sergeant tucks us up, he sings to us so nicely. He's pretty as a buttercup, dressed in a frilly nightie. What a sight to see, don't cry for me. I'm a hare that's fair, I do declare. Follow the drums most
anywhere. I'm choked by dust, me paws are split, me back is broke in two. I have one wish, and this is it, to stay at home with you. What a sight to see, don't cry for me, I'm a hare that's fair, I do declare, I'll follow the drums most anywhere.
The march progressed northeast from Salamanderstrand, cutting at an angle across the shore into the dunes. It was a warm day, and the pace was kept up briskly. As they slogged up the sandhills, Tam winked at Doogy. This is better than prancing round the groves, wondering what new tricks and fancies Idga and Araltum were up to, eh? Ugh, just listen to the Sarge giving these green paws a bit of his mind. Onwill was haranguing the slower marchers in typical sergeant fashion.
Step lively now, you bunch of dithering daisies. Left, right, Flummety, sort 'em out. Watch your left. Pick up those paws, you horrible little animal. Straighten that back, missy. Think how lucky you are. Out for a nice walk on a lovely day, eh? Fold her on, wipe that smile off your face, missy. And stop fluttering your lovely eyelashes at young Flunkworthy, or I'll have your scut for supper. Keep up at the back there. Chins in, chest out, shoulders back, eyes front. That's a ticket, me buckaroos.
Doogy chuckled at the dismayed faces of the three back rankers. Flunkworthy, folder on and Flummety, the awkward sword. Poor wee beasties, they didn't know the sergeant's all bark and no bite to the young uns. Tam spat out sand kicked up by the front rank. Aye, but they'll learn soon enough. 'Tis one thing going for a walk, and another keeping pace with a regiment. It was mid-noon before the brigadier gave orders to call a halt, and that was only because he was waiting on reports from the forward scouts. They set up camp where dunes and sand gave on to the heath and flatlands. Tam and Doogy sat with Onwill and Corporal Wopscott, resting whilst they dined off haversack rations. Crumshaw had given orders that no fires were to be lit. The food was plain but nourishing. Thick slices of chestnut and barley bread with wedges of yellow cheese washed down with mint and pennycloud cordial. Ferdinand Domain was sitting with another group close by. His voice could be heard clearly as he directed remarks at Doogy.
Wild Doogy Plumm, eh? What sort of blooming name is that for a chap, what? Fat little braggart with a silly great tail who wears a flipping skirt. No wonder he's jolly well wild.
Doogy reached for his claymore, growling.
I'll put a button on yon lanky toad's lip. I'll teach him to mock my kilt.
With a firm paw, the sergeant prevented Doogy rising.
Stay put, mate. Pay no heed to young Domain. Only a fool rises to the bait of another fool.
Tam had a grip on his friend's shoulder. He's right, Doogy. Let it be. The time will come when you face him, but not right now. The little Highlander thumped his paw against the ground.
Aye, well, can't come soon enough for me, you kin.
Further discussion was cut short by the arrival of two young hares, the scouts Kersey and Dauncey, a twin brother and sister. The brigadier joined his sergeant's group, beckoning the scouts to sit with them.
Truth, here's the best young gallopers we've had in many a season, what? Corporal Wopscott, bring 'em victuals and something to drink. Well, chaps, how did the recce go?
Dauncey was still panting as he threw a salute.
Phew! What at the vermin tracks, no east, sir?
Kersey continued as her brother paused.
Still the same bunch of villains, sir, with that odd-pawed beast leading them.
Then it was Dauncey's son.
They were at a high-banked stream yesterday. Seems they captured some river rats. Drifttail's bunch it was, sir.
The brigadier's monocled eye swivelled to Kersey.
Our old foe Drifttail, eh? How did you know 'twas him?
Kersey pulled a disgusted face.
We found his blinking head, sir. Dreadful thing to report, but the vermin ate the river rats.
Dauncey duly followed his sister.
All save two, sir, whom they took along with them when they broke camp. Good golly gosh, fancy scoffing again at scummy raps. Filthy vermin, what?
Crumshaw polished his monocle studiously.
I wouldn't shed any tears over those blighters, young un. They've done their share of slaying in the past. A few less for us to bother about, what? Where do you estimate the vermin's present position, miss?
Kersey pointed.
Still going slightly east, sir, but cutting off sharp north into mossflower woodlands. They should reach the tree fringe by evening.
The twins fell upon the food and drink which Butty had brought them. Onwill exchanged glances with Crumshaw.
Puts them a day and some hours ahead of us, sir.
The direction his scouts had given suddenly dawned on the brigadier. The monocle dropped from his eye.
Great walloping weasels, turning sharp north. That can mean only one thing. Those vermin are bound to run smack into the blinking abbey.
Tam had never visited the place, but he knew what abbey Crumshaw was referring to. Redwall Abbey. Doogy shrugged.
Oh, abbey. Oh, we came down by following the shoreline. We never got to see it.
Brigadier Crumshaw sprang upright.
Well, you're going to see it before you're much older, laddie. We'll leave straight away, Sergeant. Break camp, you two gallopers go on ahead at the double. Report back to me when you find where the vermin entered the woodlands. We'll probably make it to the broad stream with a forced march late this evening. We'll sally forth at dawn and cut down their lead, what?
With an incredibly short time, Tam and Doogy found themselves in the march again, packs on backs, blades belted, kicking up a column of dust along the flatlands in the ranks of the long patrol. Onewell brought up the rear with Butty and Lance Jack Wildery. There was little humour in the sergeant's tones as he exhorted the marchers.
Move yourself now. Pick 'em up and put 'em down at the double. Speed up now, left, right, left, right. Ain't no room for stragglers in the patrol. Stir your idle selves.
One of the old stagers hastened them on with a speedy chant.
I'm chewing dust because I must. As long as I've got mates to trust, we'll march on till our paws are bust, 'cause we've been given orders. So on we roll, the long patrol. Forget your bed and drinking bowl, 'cause if you stop, you're in a hole. The sergeant's right behind you. Left, right, march, he'll say. Over the hills and far away, from crack of dawn to end of day, good mateys and companions.
Even the best of them were weary and poor-sore when they reached the broad stream banks at late evening. Stumbling with fatigue, the regiment scrambled down the steep slopes, eager to find the best sleeping places. Camp was set up and 2 big fires lighted on the brigadier's orders. Crumshaw reasoned that, if the twin blazes were sighted, the vermin might do an about turn. This would mean the long patrol would be under attack, a far better situation from his viewpoint, because the hares were armed and ready, but Redwall Abbey was not. Tam had become separated from Doogy in the rush down the bankside. Both he and Corporal Wapscott were about to cool their paws in the shallows when they were distracted by angry shouts. Turning, they hurried back to a crowd of hares who had gathered to witness the hubbub. It was Doogy and Ferdinand at each other's throats with drawn swords. Ferdinand was yelling at the onlookers who were packed tight about them both.
Make space there so I can swing me belly blade.
Doogy was trying to raise his claymore, but he was so tightly hemmed in that his nose was nearly pressing against Ferdinand's chin.
Swing your belly blade, eh? I'll swing your belly ears from my belt as soon as I get around to do it.
Tam pushed forward into the press, but he was pulled to one side by Onewell, who had the brigadier with him. Crumshaw winked at Tam.
Leave this to us, MacBurl. There's an order. Stay out of it. There's a good chap, what?
Onewell bellowed in his best parade ground manner.
Attention! Steadfast all ranks, officer present.
The hares fell back and came to attention as Tam followed Crumshaw and Onewell through to the centre. The tough sergeant immediately pulled Doogy and Ferdinand apart.
Now then, what's all this here, you two, eh?
Ferdinand saluted with his long rapier.
Point of honour, Sarge. Private dispute, don't you know?
Onewell faced Doogy.
What have you got to say for yourself, Mr. Plumm?
The Highland squirrel bared his teeth.
I've got nothing to say, Sarge. My claymore do the talking for me, but that fancy talking fop will no be around to trip me up from behind again when I've finished.
The brigadier came smartly forward, his moustache bristling.
Put those blades down immediately. Rules and regs of our regiment don't permit duels, private or public. Listen to me, buckos. If one of you was to slay the other, I'd be forced to sentence the winner to death for killing a comrade. Quince, Derren, you will disarm these hotheads.
The 2 captains sprang in and confiscated the blades. Crumshaw cocked a monocled eye at Onewell.
Well, Sergeant, upon me scut, these 2 look as if they ain't going to kiss and make up, what? Looks like they've got plenty of vinegar still in them, eh? What do you suggest?
Onewell elbowed the pair further away from each other.
It's my opinion they're bound to have at each other, sir. Perhaps they should settle their spec like proper gentle beasts. Could I suggest a noble art, sir?
Behind his monocle, the brigadier's eye twinkled.
Capital idea. A little exhibition, eh, what? Purely non-vindictive and in the true spirit of the sport. Carry on, Sergeant. Read them the rules.
Crumshaw drew a line in the bank sand with his swagger stick and stood back. Onewell called Doogy and Ferdinand up to scratch.
Ready, young sirs? Place your right forepaws in the line and face each other. Forepaws well clenched now, that's the style. You're going to give every beast a boxing display. No biting, gouging or scratching. When I say fight, you both go to it. When I say halt, you stop. Agreed?
Doogy and Ferdinand were eyeing each other fiercely, milling their forepaws in tight small circles as they both snarled. Agreed. Onewell's battered features creased into a grin.
Thank ye kindly, young sirs. Ready? Fight!
Doogie's paw shot out. Thud! He caught his opponent, punched straight to the nose tip. The hare staggered slightly and then countered with a stinging blow to his adversary's right eye. Undeterred, the small Highlander brought forth an uppercut which rattled his foe's jaw. Then Ferdinand connected with a left that made Doogie's ear ring. Both fighters continued at it, hammer and tongs. A lot of hares were shouting for Ferdinand, but just as many joined Tam in cheering Doogie on. There were cries of advice and encouragement from both sides as the combat raged back and forth.
Duck your chin in, old lad. What's a blighter's left? Give him a jolly old 1-2. That's it. Bang away at his tuck basket. That'll win the blighter. Duck and wave. Keep jabbing away with that right, mate.
They pounded away relentlessly, footpaws never leaving the line. Doogie's right eye was almost swollen shut, and Ferdinand's nose looked like an overripe damson plum. The hare whipped out a pile-driving left, but the squirrel ducked it, looping a superb right to his opponent's chin. Whoomp! Ferdinand was knocked off the line, flat on his scut. Onewell leapt in, shouting, "Halt!" Leaning over Ferdinand, he put the question,
"Are you finished, Mr. the Man?"
The hare spat out a tooth, jumping upright like a coiled spring.
"Finished? I've only just blooming started, what?"
Onewell watched as he came forward to pour the line again.
"Right-o, fight on."
Ferdinand floored Doogie with left cross to the head. Another halt was called as the sergeant questioned Doogie.
"Mr. Plum, have you taken enough, sir?"
Quick as a flash, the Highland squirrel was up and grinning crookedly.
"Away with you, Sarge. I've got the poor lad right where I want him to be. Let me with.
They battled on, neither giving any quarter. A simultaneous barrage of punches from both sides sent the two contestants down. Staggering up and blowing for breath, they swiped out wearily at each other until they both collapsed again. The sergeant had filled Doogie's shield with stream water. He winked at the brigadier, who nodded knowingly. Splash! Whoosh! Onewell drenched the pair. As the two gasping opponents sat up, the sergeant beckoned them upright to pour the line.
"I haven't called it out yet, sirs. We wanted to fight, so stop malingering. Up off your bunkers and fight."
Bone tired, they hauled themselves upright and fought on. Every beast had fallen silent now. They looked on as the two exhausted battlers raised leaden paws and swiped away. Most of the punches were only hitting mid-air. Twice, in fact, the weary rivals found themselves back to back, actually peering about for each other. Tottering around, they tripped over their own paws and finally collapsed in a heap. Satisfied, Brigadier Crumshaw signalled Onewell, who called a final halt.
"Well, sirs, have you both had enough now?"
Ferdinand had trouble lifting his head to reply.
"I've had enough if he has."
Doogie raised a swollen paw.
"Aye, and I've had my fill for yours."
Crumshaw stepped in, helping the sergeant to stand them upright. Joining both their paws, he concluded,
"Well fought, chaps. Good scrap, I'd say, without having to wipe each other out with swords. What? Take a bow."
Both the Long Patrol and Tam gave the fighters 3 rousing cheers. The brigadier patted both their backs.
"Absolutely top hole. I hope this solved any small differences you may have had in the past, what? Now shake paws like 2 good eggs and then clean yourselves up in the stream, eh?"
Doogie and Ferdinand shook paws as best they could. The young hare grinned lopsidedly.
"Sorry for what I said about you, old lad. I was wrong. You, sir, are a true flipping warrior."
Doogie attempted a wink, but both his eyes were swollen.
You're no so bad yourself, matey. 'Twas all my fault. You have to excuse me for being so touchy, you can."
Holding each other upright, they staggered back into the stream to the accompaniment of hurrahs and backslapping.
"What a go! Well fought, you two. Here's to 2 perilous beasts. What? Rather, that scrap will go down in Long Patrol annals. Aye, never seen one like it in me blinking life."
Tam squatted by the fire with Onewell.
"Just look at Doogie wiping for Demon's nose. They seem happy enough now, eh, Sarge?"
The old veteran smiled.
"Like the brigadier said, better than seeing him carved to death by swords. A good healthy boxing match is just the ticket for clearing the air, Tam."
Crumshaw, who had joined them, sniffed the night air with relish.
"Only one thing better than the smell of a stream bank on a springtime evening. Skilly and duff for supper, what?
Corporal Buddy Wapscott, assisted by the haremaids Falderon and Flumity, were cooking away industriously. Tam took in the savoury odour from the cooking fire.
"I hope it tastes as good as it smells, sir."
Crumshaw stirred the fryer with his swagger stick point.
Young Wapscot's the finest cook we've ever had. Real treasure, that un. And he ain't put off by those pretty girls. By the way, Tam, that comrade of yours, Doogy, what's his name? Quite a game fella. Put up a superb fight. I've a feeling we're going to need chaps like him before the season's out.
Tam watched Doogy and fed him on splashing in the stream. Are you right there, sir? Going up against a Gulo beast and his vermin. We'll want good warriors to conquer beasts who are so savage they eat their enemies.